Howdy everyone, it's Reese, aka Bearman Prime, on this January the 31st. Welcome back to my Read the Bible in a Year series. Thank you again for joining me. Really do appreciate it. Card in the top right hand corner for the rest of the playlist, and please hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you stay caught up. Alright, so yesterday we wrapped up our first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis. We saw that Joseph has brought his entire family back into Egypt. Jacob, his brothers, their wives, their families, their servants, all of them. So at that point, there's about 70 of them in all living in the land of Goshen in Egypt, the Israelites. So now we're going to start today the book of Exodus. So between the end of Genesis and the beginning of Exodus is a period of about 400 years, I believe, about 4 centuries. So in that time, the nation of Israel grew from those 70 people to about 2 million in that time. Okay, so they're a legitimate nation at this point right now. So we're going to start Exodus today. If you've ever seen the movie The Prince of Egypt by DreamWorks, or if you even go further back, if you've seen the movie The Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston, both of those cover a lot of what's going to go on here in the book of Exodus. See the story of Moses, parting of the Red Sea, Israel traveling to the Promised Land, all of that. All right. So today we're going to start Exodus. We're going to start in chapter 1, starting in verse 8. Then a new king began to rule Egypt. He did not know Joseph. This king said to his people, "Look at the Israelites. There are too many of them, and they are stronger than we are. We must make plans to stop them from growing stronger. If there is a war, they might join our enemies, defeat us, and escape from the land." The Egyptians decided to make life hard for the Israelites. They put slave masters over the people. These masters forced the Israelites to build the cities of Pithom and Ramesses for the king. The king used these cities to store grain and other things. The Egyptians forced the Israelites to work harder and harder. But the harder they worked, the more they grew and spread, and the more the Egyptians became afraid of them. So the Egyptians made them work even harder. They made life hard for the Israelites. They forced the Israelites to work hard at making bricks and mortar and to work hard in the fields. The Egyptians showed no mercy in all the hard work that they made the Israelites do. Verse 15. There were 2 Hebrew nurses who helped the Israelite women give birth. They were named Shiphrah and Puah. The king of Egypt said to the nurses, "You will continue to help the Hebrew women give birth to their children. If a girl baby is born, let the baby live. But if the baby is a boy, you must kill him." But the nurses trusted God, so they did not obey the king's command. They let all the baby boys live. The king of Egypt called for the nurses and asked them, "Why did you do this? Why did you let the baby boys live?" The nurses said to the king, "The Hebrew women are much stronger than the Egyptian women. They give birth to their babies before we can go help them." The nurses trusted God, so he was good to them and allowed them to have their own families. The Hebrews continued to have more children, and they became very strong. So Pharaoh gave this command to his own people: "If the Hebrew women give birth to a baby girl, let it live. But if they have a baby boy, you must throw it into the Nile River." Chapter 2. There was a man from the family of Levi who decided to marry a woman from the tribe of Levi. She became pregnant and gave birth to a baby boy. The mother saw how beautiful the baby was and hid him for 3 months. She hid him for as long as she could. After 3 months, she made a basket and covered it with tar so that it would float. Then she put the baby in the basket and put the basket in the river in the tall grass. The baby's sister stayed and watched to see what would happen to the baby. Just then, Pharaoh's daughter went to the river to bathe. She saw the basket in the tall grass. Her servants were walking beside the river, so she told one of them to go to get the basket. The king's daughter opened the basket and saw a baby boy. The baby was crying, and she felt sorry for him. Then she noticed that it was one of the Hebrew babies. The baby's sister was still hiding. She stood and asked the king's daughter, "Do you want me to go find a Hebrew woman who can nurse the baby and help you care for it?" The king's daughter said, "Yes, please." So the girl went and brought the baby's own mother. The king's daughter said to the mother, "Take this baby and feed him for me. I'll pay you to take care of him." So the woman took her baby and cared for him. The baby grew, and after some time, the woman gave the baby to the king's daughter. The king's daughter accepted the baby as her own son. She named him Moses because she had pulled him from the water. All right, so right off the bat here, things are not going as well as they could be. But again, this is all part of God's plan, all part of God uh, proving to the nation of Israel and to the world that He is God and He is Almighty and He is the Creator God. So, like I said, in the span from the end of Genesis to now has been a period of a few centuries, and in that time, uh, Egypt, the Egyptians, and the rulers of Egypt have kind of just forgotten about Israel. And meanwhile, God has continued to bless the Israelites as they are now known, and they've grown and grown and grown, and now they pretty much outpopulate the Egyptians in their own country. So now the Egyptians are, kind of afraid. You might see some parallels there in our own world nowadays, but we won't get into that. But anyway, so now out of fear and out of hostility, the new ruler, the new pharaoh of Egypt, is trying to uh, subjugate the Israelites. He's enslaved them and forced them to build and do all these things. But they're still successful. So he just continues to work them harder and harder and harder. He tries to um, curb their population by killing any uh, boys that are born. But we see God continuing to work his plan here by saving Moses and setting him up to be uh, the deliverer for the nation of Israel. So we're going to pick it up there tomorrow. Thank you again for joining me. I sure do appreciate it. See you tomorrow. Bye.